The days after moving into my apartment blurred together. Grief came in waves, unpredictable, heavy, and exhausting. Some mornings I woke up reaching for him before remembering he wasn't there. Other nights I stayed up replaying our memories, wondering where things had gone wrong. I questioned everything: myself, my worth, my choices. How could the man who once swore to love me forever become a stranger so easily? There were moments I almost called him, my thumb hovering over his name on my phone. But then I'd remember that other woman's laughter in my kitchen, and my hand would freeze. I couldn't let myself go back to that pain. I couldn't give him that power again. Instead, I threw myself into work. My boss offered to extend my contract in Toronto, but I asked to work remotely from Seattle for a while. It gave me something to focus on, something that didn't involve heartbreak. I started going for morning runs by the lake, listening to the cold air stinging my lungs in a way that made me feel alive again. One morning, as I jogged along the path, I saw a woman sitting alone on a bench, crying quietly. I hesitated for a second, then walked over and handed her a napkin from my pocket. She looked up, embarrassed, and said, "I'm sorry, I'm just having a really bad day." I smiled faintly and told her, "You're allowed to have bad days. We all are." We ended up talking for an hour. Her name was Rachel, and she had just gone through a divorce. She said her husband had left her after 10 years of marriage. The pain in her eyes mirrored mine, and for the first time, I didn't feel alone in my suffering. From that day, we started meeting every morning for coffee and walks. We didn't fix each other, but we understood each other, and sometimes that's all you need. Slowly, my life began to rebuild itself, one fragile piece at a time. I took up painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I filled canvases with color, trying to paint away the emptiness. My apartment started to feel warm, like a space that belonged to me, not just a place I was hiding in. Then, one rainy afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. "I hope you're doing okay. I miss you, Em. Can we talk?" My heart clenched. For a few minutes, I stared at the screen, torn between anger and longing. There was a time when I would have dropped everything just to hear his voice. But not anymore. I typed back, "There's nothing left to say, Ethan. Please take care of yourself." Then I blocked his number. My hands trembled, but deep inside, I felt something unexplainable. Relief. Months passed. Seasons changed. By spring, I had learned how to live alone without feeling lonely. I started mentoring young architects online, helping them find their footing in the industry. I spoke at a women's conference about building a life after loss, and for the first time, I told my story out loud. When I looked at the faces in the audience, women nodding, some crying softly, I realized how powerful vulnerability could be. One day, while walking home from a meeting, I passed by a bookstore. The display window had a sign that said, "New Beginnings." Something about it made me stop. I went inside, and that's when I met Daniel, the owner. He was warm, quiet, and carried a kind of peace that made people feel safe. We started talking about books, and before I knew it, 2 hours had passed. He asked if I'd like to grab coffee sometime, and I said yes. Not because I was looking for love, but because it felt nice to be seen again. Our friendship grew naturally. We laughed, shared stories, and sometimes sat in silence without it feeling awkward. He never asked about Ethan, and I never felt the need to explain. He saw me not as the woman who was left behind, but as someone rebuilding her life. And maybe that's what I needed most. One evening, we watched the sunset by the lake. He turned to me and said, "You know, sometimes life breaks us to rebuild us stronger." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. "Yeah," I whispered. "I'm starting to believe that." That night, when I went home, I stood by my window, the same way I had the night I left Ethan's house, and looked at the lights reflecting on the water. But this time, there was no ache, no emptiness, just peace. Ethan once told me love was about holding on. But now I understood that sometimes love is about letting go of what was, of who hurt you, and of the version of yourself that believed you weren't enough. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I was finally ready to live it. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's heartbreak, but as myself, whole, stronger, and unafraid. If you're listening to this and you've ever been broken like I was, I want you to remember this. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, messy, and painful. But one day, you'll wake up and realize the pain has softened, the tears have dried, and you've learned to breathe again. Life has a strange way of taking us through storms to teach us how to dance in the rain. I'm not who I was a year ago, and that's okay. Because sometimes, losing everything is how we find ourselves. And to anyone out there listening, don't let heartbreak define you. Let it refine you. Because you're still here. You're still standing. And that means you're already stronger than you think. I'm Emily, and this was my story. Thank you for listening, and remember, no matter what life takes from you, never stop believing in your ability to rebuild.